radio presentation is back in the air, and we welcome you. Joining us now is a very well-respected head coach in college football. Now, Monte Kiffin is a Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator, and this week will enter the Pro Football Hall of Fame via the third annual Awards of Excellence. Monte Kiffin coached with the Vikings 2 times and for 8 years total, including as defensive coordinator in 1991. Time for 2 more. Bob Hagan will join Monty this week in Canton and represent the Vikings. And to chat about this honor, 9 to noon, is very happy to welcome Ole Miss football coach and Monty's son, Lane Kiffin, a Bloomington Jefferson graduate of 1994. Coach, it's Paul Allen. Good to meet you.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Right on, man. This is cool. I appreciate you. How is your father, Monty, doing these days?
He still comes up here every day to work. He's 84, and kind of life's taking a little health toll on him. But his passion for football and his love for it, still comes alive up here for a couple hours every day.
At this stage of his life, and or with the equity and or acumen or just everything your father is seeing, in what ways, whether it's with the student athletes, the personnel, or with this any form of scheme, where do you find him helping you most now?
I think over the years it's moved a little out of scheme and a lot more into just helping players or young coaches, especially kind of more with life and early on, struggles in coaching and motivating them. Over the years, he's been with us now for a couple places, but especially here and then FAU, so that would be the last 7 years there. It's been kind of funny because a lot of times you'll go down there, it'll be him and the young GAs hanging out and telling old stories, and so pretty neat to see.
What, Lane, what do you remember about your Minnesota years when your father coached here with, let's say, Jerry Burns?
It was an awesome time. I've actually said a number of times when people have asked me over all the places moved and lived, where was my favorite place, and I said Minnesota, and said, they said why, and I said the people, and it really just had an amazing feel to it, and the way people, in neighborhoods treated each other, and I've kind of got to re-experience here in Mississippi a little bit because my daughter went to high school here in Oxford, Mississippi, and then chose to go to Ole Miss. She's a freshman, just finished her freshman year. And they asked her, well, why would you come from, she came from California here to Mississippi, and she said the people. So it's kind of interesting that now I see a daughter at basically the same age that I was when I was in Minnesota, find her niche and find really neat people that she really enjoys to be around.
That's beautiful. And I brought up the name Jerry Burns. May God rest his soul. What sparked such a wonderful, deep, trusting relationship between your father and Jerry Burns?
Yeah, I'm not really sure how exactly that's right. I just know once they were together, they really got along, and I just always remember my dad talking about Burnsy, and he'd come by, like on Christmas, and you'd hear his voice and laugh through the house, and then I was a ball boy for the Vikings. That would have been the first time around. We were there and then left to the Jets a year and then came back. So, probably like 7th, 8th grade. And, Burnsy he was just always funny in the stories around Mankato there, and he was just awesome.
What is it like being a ball boy, like during training camp? So say you're finishing middle school or you're in high school at Bloomington Jefferson or whatever, because like the Minnesota Vikings have become home for some of the more famous ball boys in the history of the NFL. We have you, Lane Kiffin. Larry Fitzgerald Jr. was a ball boy. What's it like at that age being around the professional athletes and just being a ball boy?
It's an amazing opportunity. To be in those locker rooms and the practice fields and to be around those guys was awesome. And I got so many memories just, of the Vikings players. And my brother was up at the Vikings facility a couple weeks ago and sent some pictures of the teams. And just to remember all the names, and just see them in the same picture, with my dad there and Coach Carroll next to him and Schnelker, and then you see Millard and Randall McDaniel and all these guys. And actually on this award thing, the first interview for it, to kind of announce it was Rich Gannon. So,
wow.
And I joked that I used to put Rich Gannon's, pads in his pants, because we each had certain players that we had lockers that we had to keep clean and keep ready, and one of mine was Rich Gannon. So I joked with him about that.
So wait, your brother was at Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center. Your brother as in linebackers coach for the Houston Texans? Because we played them this year. That could be crazy. Maybe he was up there to get some intel.
I don't know. I think he was just doing a tour of some places and stuff. And,
that's sweet.
I just sent some, actually, picture from, I don't even know if it's called, but it used to be 98th Street Racket Club. That I used to go to when I was little. He remembered the gyms and the locker rooms.
Wow.
Nothing, but it just seems exactly the same. And so it's just kind of, as you get older, kind of crazy to think that was, 30 years ago or something.
That's fantastic. This is Lane Kiffin, head coach in many spots, including with the Oakland Raiders, Tennessee Volunteers, USC Trojans. He was the 1A to Nick Saban for Alabama and the Crimson Tide, and now coaches the Ole Miss Rebels football team. We're talking about his father, Monte Kiffin, a Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator who spent nearly a decade coaching with the Minnesota Vikings over a couple of stints. And Monte is joining the Pro Football Hall of Fame this week. Thursday's the big day via the third annual Awards of Excellence program. And your father, Monte, and the Tampa 2 defense, I mean, that's just football immortality. It's just synonymous. So please describe, in your way, Coach Kiffin, what goes into a quality Tampa 2 defense?
Good players. They make every scheme good.
Right.
But when that was built and played for all those years, they needed to have, which obviously was played there at the Vikings too, and Coach Dungy and my dad were there together as assistants, and really good defensive linemen, that can rush, because a lot of four-man rush and a lot of quarterback holding the ball into zone coverage. It's not played quite as much anymore because a lot of people just put a safety, put a guy deeper and sub-in packages to basically play the same defense. But,
yeah.
Mike linebacker that could run down the middle was important. And and corners that can tackle.
So like when he won a Super Bowl, he had Rondé Barber and Donnie Abraham, then John Lynch on the back end, of course, Derek Brooks, and starts up front with a Warren Sapp. So you're right. I mean, when you're able to have speed like that, they're amazing players. But like in the cover 2 or the Tampa 2, Coach, does it stress speed over size and strength?
Yeah, I think you can. I think over time they got by with some smaller defensive linemen, but I think that also was a trend that they went to.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because of the Tampa 2, but more because we're going to get faster, not necessarily as long, tall, especially defensive tackles, but they can rush better, and that would go back to John Randall doing that.
Yeah.
So I think it was not just for one defense; it was kind of a philosophy.
Did your father, did Monte ever strive to become a head coach after a few years running NC State and the Wolfpack, or was that not much of an interest to him?
He did a little bit. He actually, when they won the Super Bowl, he had a chance to be the Niners head coach and turned it down and stayed in Tampa. And so I think it was kind of, he had wanted to, but that wasn't his purpose or his goal. And then he became so happy living in Tampa and with that organization there that he changed from that and, just cared more about the people he was with, regardless of the title that he had, and affecting them.
Now, Lane, correct me if I'm wrong here, but as Monte's son, and before you left for Fresno State, you lived in Nebraska, Arkansas, North Carolina, Green Bay, Buffalo, and Minnesota twice. What was that difficult at all as a kid? And I would imagine it helps you learn to make friends, right?
Yeah, it does. And actually, between those two Minnesotas was Long Island, New York. So that was a very, very big difference from Bloomington to Long Island. And I actually remember my dad coming in and telling us we were going back. I was only gone like 10 months, and it was one of the best days of my life coming back. But it does. I had a family that was in here in recruiting just this weekend, and they'd moved all these times. And I said, it's tough on the kids, but then you learn later on in life it does allow you to adapt more and be able to, hold more conversation in different parts of regions of the country, and it makes you grow up in certain areas. Makes you very uncomfortable and gets you used to being uncomfortable.
Right. How are things looking for your Ole Miss squad this year? That SEC is all about a bear. I mean, what a tough conference.
Yeah, we got a chance to be good on paper and ended up with 11 wins last year and won the Peach Bowl, and a lot of preseason hype and a lot of really good players came back and transferred here, but we'll have a lot of work to do with an extremely challenging schedule.
When you recruit, are you learning like with the high school kids? Because when we do radio shows at the NFL Combine yearly, it just seems finding the right three technique, the pass rushing defensive tackle, is becoming like as hard as finding the right quarterback. It's like diamonds in the rough, or whether somebody's ballyhooed or not. Is it like that when you recruit high school talent, finding big time three techniques?
Yeah, they just don't make many. There's not many bodies created that way that are that strong, powerful, and that can run. So there's not a lot of them, and so they're very sought after. And then why eventually they make so much and get drafted so high and make so much in the NFL. So when there's not many of them, they end up making a lot of money and they're hard to find. Kind of like the big fish, down in the Bahamas or something, the marlin. Right. And there's just not many of them.
Now Lane did awesome work at Alabama as offensive coordinator. Did it surprise you when your friend Nick Saban retired?
A little bit, yeah. I didn't. I knew it was coming, but I didn't know it was a strange time. Normally, it comes like right after the last game or something, or maybe even announce it before in the last season of farewell tour, But so I was a little surprised with the timing, but not. I think that there was some frustrations there that he had with the changing of college football and
the
locker room, and the. I would say obsession over NIL with a lot of players that really frustrated him.
Well, and then, the transfer portal, what's your take on that? We're several years into it now, and the challenges that come with it as a head football coach.
I think there's some really good parts about it when it was, initially made and someone would have an opportunity to leave one time and, but now it's become a mess, and this is coming from someone that Ole Miss probably benefits more from the current, has probably benefited as much as anyone in the country from the current system. And I'm still telling you it's completely messed up, and it helps us. It's just really, it's not good for a lot of people, including the kids. What they think is good, that they can leave twice a year and as many times as they want, seems great, but that really doesn't, sometimes it's used well, but a lot of times it's not, because they don't even stick through a season of trying to, fight through some adversity, and anytime something goes wrong, I can either go in or I can already make a mental decision to go in and check out.
Yeah, and this may be just a couple more here. Thanks for the time too, Lane. This may be dumb, but so you're coaching Ole Miss during a season. Say you're having a wonderful season or whatever, but there are players who were recruited who aren't playing as much as they thought they would play. So do you, in essence, have to recruit during the season with players on your roster to convince them to stay or stuff like that?
Unfortunately, that does happen, and even you see these opt-outs and bowl game stuff of major players, to go to draft, but now, they're started to go into the portal, and they don't play, in their bowl game, and even backups, that are on special teams because they don't want to get injured to go in the portal. So there's a lot of things that have come out of it that have not been beneficial for college football.
Last one here. I know you and your family are quite close with Pete Carroll from your USC days. Do you think Pete will get back into coaching after that awesome run with the Seahawks?
I don't know that. I hope he does because he's still so full of life and he's such a great coach and motivator that I hope he does for the sport because I talked to him for about an hour a couple weeks ago, and he's just and actually had our quarterback on and a couple coaches on there, and he's so good at what he does.
What in closing part two, what would you say, being a head coach in multiple spots at the highest level of the NFL and the SEC, which is terrific, what are some, maybe a single trait that you learned from your dad, witnessing how he coaches, that has impacted and or helped you sustain as long as you have?
I think, and I'm not near as good as him, and I worked to try to get there, but the way that he, treats everybody in the building everywhere he was at and all the people. And I still get stories of I'll go to, a high school somewhere in New Jersey or wherever it is, and they're like, I remember your dad coming here and spending hours with us just helping us get better for nothing in return.
Lane, thank you very much for the time. Best of luck to your Rebels this year, and God bless your father, and hopefully the health situation continues to improve. And congratulations on the honor for him. Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a great week.
Yep. Good meeting you, man. See ya. That's Lane Kiffin, coach of the Ole Miss Rebels, talking about Monte Kiffin, one of the he's football immortality. Monte Kiffin, along with Tony Dungy, when they were here. Before Tony left and became a head coach. It's the cover two defense. It's not like they invented the cover two defense. It's not like Mike Zimmer invented the mugging of the A gap or the pass rushers through the A gap, which would be to the right and left of the center. But Monty and people like Zim are just so laborious in their task and so laborious in their approach with taking what everybody is doing and tweaking it and making it unto their own. And, that's why middle of the interview, I presented to Lane, because I'm like, what makes a good Tampa 2? He's like, good players. Okay, I've heard that a million times. But he's right with the Buccaneers, the team that won the Super Bowl, and the defense guided by Monte Kiffin. You had Donnie Abraham, Rondé Barber, John Lynch,
Simeon Rice.
Wow. Derek Brooks, Warren Sapp, and so on. Right. You got good players. Ain't no doubt about it. But the evolution of the Tampa 2, really it played throughout the entire NFL because it led to players being drafted that weren't all required to be built like, say, Ray Lewis or Scott Studwell, the greatest tackler in the history of Minnesota Vikings football. Stud was muscular and he was fast and he was tough, but he was also on the lean side where, Ray Lewis was just super thick.
Yeah. And he mentioned it when you were talking with him too. I thought it was interesting where he said, with the mic that they actually would nowadays and the evolution of that was where we can put a safety in and just drop him and play back. So that lends to what you're talking about where, and then we've seen it with the Vikings, right? 3 safety looks and all of those things. We talked about it during Zimmer's tenure here, even though that never really came to fruition.
Yep.
He liked what he had with Kendricks and Barr and such, so that wasn't necessarily implemented. But from that standpoint, the evolution is we can play maybe more athletic, undersized guys and still ultimately gain the same outcome just by tweaking it here and there. And how many nights does that take staying at the facility, the Monte Kiffins of the world? We saw Zimmer. We actually experienced the intensity of that task, as you say. It's really impressive just to kind of hear Lane talking a bit about his dad. And I remember him. I'm just, you want to talk about baby Hannah. I'm baby Nordo going to training camp down in Mankato.
Oh.
And Gene Cooper driving me up the hill, and I'm putting my little arms through the chain link fence, and I'm slapping hands with the Chris Dolmans of the world, the types of guys that helped make that system that Dungy and Kiffin put together.
Yeah.
Helped making that flourish.
Yeah, that was terrific. Having Lane, coach of the Ole Miss Rebels, talk about his father Monte, and if you just think it out a little bit and think about some of the personnel, the evolution of the player, it just continues defensively. I mean, I don't know exactly the year where it was like, all right, it's a passing league. All right, it's become a passing league. Let's spread out 5 wide. Let's spread out 2 by 2, 2 receivers, receiving options left and right. Go with a single back. And throw the ball 60% of the time. Whenever that transpired, it was working. So defenses had to adjust. And, thus with the Tampa 2 scheme, everybody still runs a form of Tampa 2, because it's a cover 2 defense. And, it's in vogue to still run that, maybe not as your base. I just wonder when, through the passing league and through the impact, and or explosiveness, these new age offenses were having, when the development of the 3-4 hybrid with floaters.
I always love that one.
When that took place. Maybe it was 2023 Minnesota Vikings with Josh Metellus as one of them floaters. Thank you, Bob Hagan with the Minnesota Vikings, for assisting us with Lane Kiffin. And congratulations.
Time for 2 more.
To football immortality, Monte Kiffin, who's 84 years of age. And he enters the Pro Football Hall of Fame this Thursday with the Awards of Excellence program. 9 to noon, we'll continue the conversation we had about some things Cam Bynum said recently with NFL Network, which we guess is still a thing. And you can drop some talkbacks if you're interested on the Vikings experience or lack thereof. Ballers at every skill spot on offense or not. Getting to the Super Bowl, 80-1 to win it, 35-1 to get there. Cam Bynum says that what he saw with organized team activities in minicamp, that this is a Super Bowl caliber team. Talkbacks via the free iHeartRadio app. We will play some of those back if we have some around the corner when we return for the second half of the Monday presentation. This is 9 to noon on KFAN.
Just kind of resetting the conversation from last hour. Cam Bynum, Vikings safety. He was in the Philippines. I believe he was putting a camp together in the Philippines. 7,500 islands in the Philippines, by the way, in case you were looking for random trivia on a Monday morning. But he joined NFL Network, Mr. Garofalo and Ms. Dales, Stacey Dales, chatting with him not only about the work he's doing in the Philippines, but also a Super Bowl outlook for the Vikings. Here's that audio we played earlier.
All right, quickly, Cam, give us the ceiling for this team. We got Jordan Addison on this group. He's had an amazing offseason. Justin Jefferson got the massive deal. We'll see who's at quarterback for you. Likely Sam to start. But with that defense, what's the ceiling for this group this year?
I expect the Super Bowl. I know everybody says that, and everybody should say that. But you look at the guys on the team, you look at the locker room, all the experience that we have. We look how much depth we have, especially on the defense. So many guys, it's almost weird looking around because you're like, okay, how are we all going to get on the field? Because there's so many ballers. You look at the offense, there's a baller at every position when you look across the whole board. So that's why I'm confident when I say I expect us to be a Super Bowl team. And but really, our preparation has to tell it all. That you say that every team says that every year, but we have to put all these names and everything. We have to make it real.
So that was Cam Bynum joining NFL Network. And as PA had mentioned, your talkbacks as well via the free iHeartRadio app. You hit that microphone, you give us up to your best 30 seconds. And well, as Vikings fans, the word Super Bowl, it evokes many emotions, you could say. Via the talkback machine, let's listen to one of a couple that I have.
I think Vikings fans need to curb their expectations when it comes to this upcoming season. We have a lot of new young talent on the roster, and we have a lot of dead cap on the books. I think we should see this as a transitional year as we look forward to 2025 and beyond.
Oh, transition year.
Well, I mean, you curb your expectations depending on what your expectations are. So off what Cam Bynum said in the Core 4 from NFL Network, which assumedly still is a thing. He bragged about the experience of the Minnesota Vikings, the depth on defense, basically saying that, it's like I look around here and there's so many good players that I just wonder, like, when is everybody going to get playing time? And then he spoke on a quote, ballers at every position, end quote. And that was talking about the offense and the skill position players. And then, he said what we've heard a million times. That's just how NFL people talk at this time of the year. Our expectations are to go to the Super Bowl. And I'm not going to grandstand and say this is a Super Bowl team, but this is the most by faith entrance to a season I can remember since 2009 or 2010 with Brett Favre. It's a by faith approach, and a lot of it has to do with the youthful nature of the defense. And then, as Nordo mentioned about 45 minutes ago, most of it starts and stops with the quarterback position with Sam Darnold, and the assumption that Darnold absolutely will start against the New York Giants when the Vikings begin the 2024. But leaving minicamp, defensively speaking, that was a common thread with media members with whom I chat, things that I've read, heard, or seen, or chatting with coaches or players, is the speed and the youth of the Minnesota Vikings defense is something that greatly excites many people within that covenant. So that would be a common thread off some things Cameron Bynum had to say recently with NFL Network, assumedly still a thing. And when I say a by faith approach, it's mostly because of the quarterback situation. I mean, I can bang my fist down and guarantee that Sam Darnold will be better than he was with the Jets or the Carolina Panthers, and 9 to noon will be right if it were to do that. But then you get into the how much better, because if that situation, if that position is requisite of high-end quarterback play, well, then they could be onto something, and there are a lot of braggadocious players, a lot of players throwing verbal bouquets the way of the Vikings offense and Sam Darnold, those playing with him and or against him in organized team activities or minicamp. And I've been out there enough to see mostly what they're talking about. Sam runs Kevin O'Connell's system, and Sam's very smart. Not the most loquacious human being I've ever come across, but maybe it's me. But he's very smart. He's very detailed, and he's very intentional.
Yeah.
Sam's just very, here's the system. I don't want to make him sound like a robot, but that's kind of what they need, is somebody to run it the way it has proven when run the right way, it'll beat you, or it'll run up and down the field on you. Now, like last year, okay? I mean, Nick Mullins comes into some games and they're running up and down the field at Cincinnati right in front of Christmas, or maybe against the Lions, and they're getting like 400 some odd yards of offense or whatever. But then there would be a turnover that would cost them the game. So I think that's the line of delineation. That's the separator right there. With Darnold, assumedly the starting quarterback week 1, it's run it, be yourself, get out of bad situations, and don't turn it over. And if you do that, you find JJ in stride, or Addison in stride, or Aaron Jones on a wheel route. You can screen with Aaron Jones. You can run angle routes with Aaron Jones between the hash marks and watch him make somebody miss. They do have a bevy of talent, but the by faith approach starts and stops with the quarterback. And unless I'm missing something here, like 2017, that wasn't a by faith approach into the season. That was murky. With Sam Bradford as your quarterback, and he's on a set of knees that had seen their better days. So you kind of felt like you were on borrowed time, from the minute he got here. And then he beats the New Orleans Saints on Monday Night Football.
Unbelievable game too,
right? For Dalvin too. It was Dalvin's debut, and Sam becomes the NFC Offensive Player of the Week. Well, then he's lost for the season. So then Case Keenum plays against the Steelers, and it was terrible. After that, they eventually end up going 2-2 through 4 games. Dalvin Cook tore up his ACL at home against the Lions. And from then on, they gelled and they came together because Case Keenum is similar to the likes of a Sam Darnold to a certain extent. Now, Case has a little more improvisation to him, but Sam can run too. And the system here is different than it was in 2017 with Pat Shurmur as the offensive coordinator. But it still was good. But I didn't come into that season with like a by faith approach. And that's what it is with the 2024 Vikings for me, because there's so much youth on which they're going to rely defensively. And you have a new quarterback that's nothing but by faith. Darnold and Dallas. How will Sam Darnold run the offense? And will Dallas Turner become Defensive Rookie of the Year and look the part of a big timer? Darnold, Dallas, and Darisaw. Christian playing for a boatload of cash, and for the team to sniff a Super Bowl berth. Christian Darisaw and the Minnesota Moving Company need to hold their own for the balance of the journey. And touching on something Nordo said 48 minutes ago, we don't even exactly know who the starting guards are going to be. I mean, Wes Phillips, the offensive coordinator, basically anointed Blake Brandel as the starting left guard at one of his press conferences within the last month. Then they signed Dalton Reisner. And 9 to Noon has shared that, not only are both guard spots probably up for grabs, I'd make Brandel prohibitively favored to be the starting left guard. But, now into the third year for Ed Ingram, that's a potential open spot. So that all needs to come together, too, for the by faith approach to the 2024 Vikings. Copyright Cam Bynum even sniffing the Super Bowl, Minnesota Moving Company. And by football faith with the 2024 Minnesota Vikings, it's late June. Training camp begins in 5 weeks, first preseason game in a month and a half. And that's my take into 2024 at this stage. It's a by faith approach, by football faith. And we probably won't. I shouldn't say we won't see Sam Darnold in the preseason. We probably will. But to what extent and what will we be able to pull from that? Darnold, Dallas, Darisaw, the defense. What has Cam Bynum seen that encourages him so? Has Shaq Griffin stabilized a corner spot? Has a Caleb Evans hit stride year 3? Has Mekhi Blackmon jumped out of his skin into year 2? Maybe the hybrid 3-4 with floaters is set to explode with unpredictability and speed and youthful exuberance. Talkbacks, if interested, we have room to drop them in later. Free iHeartRadio app. We thank Lane Kiffin for joining us. Russo Radio about 45 minutes from now from South Florida on Stanley Cup Game 7. And News du Nord makes its return around the corner. It's 9 to noon.
News du Nord, 9 to noon, is brought to you by The Casino, not a casino, The Casino at Canterbury Park, CanterburyPark.com. Whether it's corgis or basset hounds or wiener dogs, you got so many different family-style activities with the races out there. Of course, the horses, the thoroughbreds, kids love them. I'm bringing baby Hannah out there either next weekend or the weekend after that. Pumped to do it. But the key is it's table games. You're feeling the felt, poker, blackjack, and such all year round, having sips at chips. Make sure to over-tip Derek Allen if he is the particular one to serve you. But you're going to have a blast. It's the only spot really down in Shakopee that you're going to have a family time, chance to win some cash, watch and wager, maybe hit a pick 5, pay that mortgage. It's all good at Canterbury Park and CanterburyPark.
Damn, that was nice.
.com.
Yeah, that was nice of you, man. We're on the grind. Ain't no doubt about it. It's 3 days of racing a week, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. Ain't trying to make it sound like working the job is the grind. It's just there are ancillary things coming at us from all angles.
Slings and arrows?
Slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. Some of them understandable. Some of them like, What?
Man, I read this Jay Litza thing that I saw him put out. Yeah, I mean, it's preposterous.
Right. I mean, it's just so many ridiculous things. But anyway, it's very nice of you to say nice things.
Twins, 6-1 over the Athletics over the last week and a half. They win 3-0 yesterday. It was Buxton with a homer. He had an RBI knock later in the game as well. So they take 2 of 3 in the Bay over the weekend. You dig that. They're at the Diamondbacks starting tomorrow. Twins firmly in a wild card spot, and it's with a whimper or a whisper at this stage, as many of the fan base actually can't view the games right now. But 7.5 games out of the division spot. Cleveland still holding firm atop the Central, but the team is trending in the right direction. Looking forward to seeing them or hearing about it or reading an article after the fact, following Dan Hayes of The Athletic, etc.
Yep.
At some point as they traverse their way down to Arizona starting mañana.
Yeah, and from what I have seen, I mean, it's equivalent. It's the equivalent of a Bigfoot sighting. It's you think you saw it, you're not sure you saw it. Sometimes it was big and it was beautiful and it was beastly, but sometimes it was like, wow, that didn't even really exist. And
I wasn't even going to throw it to you, by the way, because I'm thinking like, over the last 2 weeks, I've seen like some Audra Martin Twitter/X posts. I follow the Twins. I've seen some highlights.
Yeah.
But my goodness,
I'm out.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm out. And I mean, I follow it from afar. We paid for it, or I don't know what. At Canterbury, we have Twins games. All right. So, but as you will learn about 10 to 12 minutes from now, at least for me, there's another league that is the beneficiary of my time because of this pissing contest, this shoe size contest, this ridiculous situation where we're not able, for the first time in my 58 years on God's green earth, to be able to turn on a TV and watch a local baseball team. So there are others over the long haul that will benefit. And as a sports diversion goes in my life, there's definitely another league that's benefiting because I can't find the Twins.
NBA draft is on Wednesday. That's going to be something that piques our interest and gets our attention over the next couple of days. Now, the NBA, by the way.
I thought I had the answer, too, because Finchy came in studio a couple of years ago, and I don't listen back to 9 to noon, but if there's like something that hit me that resonates from an instinctive standpoint, I'll write it down. So Finchy came in, and then I waited a week.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I think they're going to draft Walker Kessler. Remember, I can't remember what led me to making that prediction. But they did. And then they peddled him. Then they traded him as part of the Gobert trade. It was something Finch said during the course of the interview. And then, I couldn't pick Walker Kessler out of a 2-person lineup standing next to Elvin Hayes, at that time.
Well, and I do remember you talking about Walker before the draft.
Unbelievable.
And I should have picked up on it. We've used this example, like Anthony Barr was not a guy that you talked a ton about, maybe not much at all about.
Yeah, didn't even know who he was.
And then suddenly on the morning of the draft, it feels like, they're probably going to select Anthony Barr, linebacker out of UCLA.
Swedberg cut my pay 25%. He was so mad.
So similarly, when you start talking about Walker Kessler and his blocking ability, I should have caught on to the fact that, wait a minute, he's not into Maction, he's going to be trying to bust brackets like anybody else, but there's no chance that he's watching with any frequency Walker Kessler's games. Because, and by the way, we had Twins baseball at the time, so that was certainly part of the vibe too.
Right.
I should have caught on to that, and I never did.
Right. Well, I thought I had it again this year.
Ooh.
For then and right before I took some vocal maintenance days, and I kept talking about it, but I just kept forgetting to get to it. And I'm glad I did, because it would have been wrong. I believe it would have been wrong. And this doesn't mean the Wolves will not draft this player, but I don't believe they're going to draft him in the first round, because I thought, reading between the lines with the head coach, that I unfurled a 2 for 2 in the pick 5. And it was when Chris said, we were talking about this UCLA kid that's on the roster who didn't play last year. Can't remember his name. But he was the college basketball defensive player of the year. He was the Naismith defensive player of the year. And then, so we're talking about him a little bit near the end of the 2-segment confab, the day Hannah Elizabeth Nordquist was born. And he said, that this cat was Defensive Player of the Year, and he goes like, 11 of the last 12 or 10 of the last 11 Defensive Players of the Year have been pretty good in the NBA. I'm like, all right, cool.
Really?
Wait a couple hours, hit that Google machine.
Okay, and it's NCAA Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, Jamal Shead for the Houston Cougars,
and it was Jalen Clark, by the way.
Jalen Clark,
the UCLA cat.
Right. Okay, so I'm like, I got it again. He dropped the nug, and I got it again. I can't wait to get back and chat. I mean, I wrote this sucker out last week on Friday for our Ballyhooed Back Together Again return, where I was going to give you a gift, the gift of a prognostication that was going to be right. And with the 27th pick in the 2024 NBA draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Houston Cougars point guard Jamal Shead. I don't think that's going to be the case. But that doesn't mean, when do they pick in the second round? Like 37?
I think it's 27 and 37 are their picks this year.
Right. Now, Jamal, it just added up. Head coach dropped a nug. 10 of 11 or 11 of the last 12 Defensive Players of the Year in college basketball have been quite good in the NBA. Cool. And I wondered who the one was that he thought wasn't very good, but we didn't have time to do opine.
Well, so I have Javon. I'm starting in 2018. They must have renamed it, so I'd have to go find the full list.
Right.
Javon Carter. And I don't even know who he plays for, to be honest.
Yeah,
but then he hits you in 19 with Matisse Thybulle.
Ooh. Well, he's a defensive stud.
Yeah, you could win games with him coming off the bench, play 10 minutes, couple of steals and 2 blocks.
No, wait a second. Friends, stop complaining to me about the way Jamal Shead shoots. When Matisse Thybulle is in the freaking conversation, and he can't shoot a lick.
No, he can't.
Yet he's finding a way to last in the NBA and getting the pension.
But now, Walker Kessler.
Yeah.
Whatever happened his rookie year, the 6 blocks a night type of thing.
Yeah. Walker Kessler is the NBA's version of Ed Ingram.
I mean, that is a one-hit wonder of one-hit wonders at this moment.
You can win with Ingram, like 13 games, a rookie year. You can, with Walker Kessler as rookie year, you can win games with 4, 5, 6 blocks a game. Now, Ingram didn't fall off as precipitously in his second year. What in the hell happened to Walker Kessler last year? He wasn't even average. He was bad.
No, he was terrible. And frankly, the Jazz, I mean, I don't even know what the hell they're doing on that team right now. You got, they have Chris Dunn, Taylor Horton-Tucker, Keontae George, Colin Sexton.
They still got Sexton?
They still have Sexton. I think they have Clarkson as well.
Yeah.
But Marketing's their guy.
Yep.
And then what?
Yeah.
And I don't think does Walker Kessler even start?
Mm-hmm.
I don't. They got John Collins from Atlanta.
Yeah.
Like, there's just a weird-ass team with a lot of the same thing, and none of it results in good basketball. But we got 4-time Defensive Player of the Year now, Rudy, so we can move on from Kessler.
But see, with Shead, we need a Conley replacement plan.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike with some cup minutes like Harry the Hitman, maybe a reserve role, probably not. I think Mike would acquiesce and be cool with that. He's the consummate professional. But we need one. So maybe they trade for one. So I thought I was on it, man. When he said that, I was like about ready to get loud on the radio and say the Wolves are going to take Jamal Shead with their first pick. Shh, don't tell anybody. I don't believe that to be the case. So maybe we spend a little more time on the NBA draft during either today or the course of the week, because I'm just going to be square with you, man. I mean, you're running down the hallway, bowling over Finch, who's already on one knee because you got a baby on the way. I thought he dropped me a nugget. I'm about ready to get loud about something called Jamal Shead. I would have been wrong, I believe. But because of that, because I thought I had the answer, I haven't looked at anybody else who they potentially. I mean, okay.
And with that said, we're gonna do a full breakdown for an hour tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, like pickle at the point, or flustered at the forward.
Well, I feel
or the center of attention.
I feel so out of the mix because when Hannah was born, it was still kind of fresh off of the season ending for the Wolves, and I think it was Double T in the zone who had kind of talked, and he started some fervor about the idea of, would you trade Cat for Trae Young, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And that would then, we're talking, okay, we elevate Naz Reid, 6th man of the year. Yeah. Now he's starting. Mm-hmm. Conley would go to the bench. Mm-hmm. The scoring picks up at the point, obviously, with Trae Young. Like, has that been a talker over the last? Are they still talking about that? Has that cooled off? Emotions kind of leveled out a bit?
Well, you got to remember that had a fair amount of vocal maintenance days of late.
You've been out as well.
So
you're watching Rockies Dodgers. How cool was that at Mile High?
Oh, wow.
It's a beautiful stadium, right?
Yeah. Well, I learned a lesson that Monday night. I took young Nicole to a Rockies and Dodgers game. You have to be an elite Rocky Mountain mind when you're buying seats online to know exactly where to sit.
Okay.
For games where the sun sets, as the fan has learned in the West.
There you go.
Yeah, so I bought seats relatively close to the Rockies dugout. And, I mean, there was 2.5 hours of 95-degree blazing sun. And the thing is, we were in, like, section 123. If I had just picked 122, which I could have, then there would have been no sun terrorism. It didn't ruin the day because I was there with baby bowlers, but it definitely compromised it a little bit. But Coors Field, man, Coors Field, I think the way I put it in the tweet was, it's old school, but it never gets old. It's just spectacular, that ballpark.
That's news to Nord, and I got a few talkers in my bag that maybe we continue as well. But news to Nord brought to you by one of my favorite spots, Love and Local. It's Canterbury Park, CanterburyPark.com.
It's 11 o'clock. Good morning from 9 to noon. One league's loss, at least for me, is another league's gain. And find out what we mean around the corner on KFAN.